Hi folks, Josh Knight the First here with another episode of Writer Rebuild, coming to you with episode 38 of the series. Let's get right into it. So this week on Common Writer Build, we've come to an episode that many are calling the best so far, and I know we've said that a couple of times about certain episodes. I think it's about 3 this time through the series, but this episode in particular, episode 38, we've really hit a point where there's so many things going on beautifully in the background, as well as moving the plot forward, and you know it's going to be a serious episode because we didn't get an opening this week, and you always know when there's no opening, stuff's about to go down. So to recap from last week's episode, we see that Evolt has now gained the power of Black Hole by use of the Evol trigger, which he used to go ahead and defeat the 3 riders in the last episode. Now they're going to try again in this episode, but to the same amount of success, especially now that they're weakened. Now during this fight, during this incursion with Evol, we see that Ryuga is somehow remembering his time as being part of Evol back on Mars. He has kind of a sort of flashback to his time there on Mars, probably before it was destroyed. Now how much more of this he's going to remember in the next couple of episodes, we're not sure yet, but I imagine this will play a factor in very soon. Now after this initial carryover fight from the last episode, we see that Evol now has more power at his disposal. We see that he uses the Evol trigger and puts it back into Pandora's box to develop a new panel. Now we know that the panel that's missing is of course being used by Sento/Katsuragi right now, which will eventually lead to the power-up. But this panel that he's made seems to be able to turn these full bottles into golden versions of these full bottles, and what kind of power that will give him, who knows? It's just another power he has access to now. Now once we've gotten past all that, we actually get to the real meat of the episode, which is at this point Evol is pretty secure in just how much power he has, and he's done playing around. And when he does play, he only lets himself play for a little bit before he gets right down to business. And that's displayed right away when we see this first scene between him and Nanba. Now you'll notice a classical piano piece being played there in the background, which actually makes a lot of sense when you understand what the piece is. So that piece was composed by Chopin back in 1831, called Etude in C minor, known as the Revolutionary Etude. Now looking at the history of this piece, Chopin wrote this to compile all his feelings about the Polish-Russian War, which actually had to do with an uprising being squashed by the government at the time, which when you put that in context with this episode, the government and the uprising are about to get crushed by this larger force. Now we were wondering from last week's episode preview just how exactly Isurugi was going to be repossessed by Evolt. Not that it was a matter of power, because Evolt has all the power right now, but apparently that's not the case. Evolt is just mimicking Isurugi's looks. Now he's gained the power to mimic anybody that he sees, shown in how he mimics Isurugi and also in mimics Nanba. Now you might ask yourself for a second, why would he mimic Nanba? Well, because he just put him on notice. He tells him, look, I'm done with the pleasantries, I'm going to be the leader of this country, you can be PM if you want, or if you don't like it, I'll just kill you. See, it's this point that the real evil, the facade that he's been putting on the show, doesn't matter anymore, because now he's getting down to business. He has all the pieces that he needs, he might as well move forward with his plan beyond all the planning stages. This is the actual implementation of his plan right now, which is why he has no problem telling Nanba, look, you've got 24 hours to decide whether you're with me or against me. Not that I really care, but if you're against me, you're dead. Now going along with this, the focus actually shifts to Utsumi, who has a lot to do with this episode, a lot of meaty parts here. We see that he's offered a basic Faustian deal by Evolt, saying, look, if you swear loyalty to me based off everything you know I'm going to do, you'll be rewarded with your very own Evol driver, available now at toy stores near you in Japan. But the thing of it is, Utsumi has a lot on his mind right now. He knows he's got loyalty to Nanba Heavy Industries. Nanba basically raised him, or he's at least been indoctrinated that way, but at the same time he's fighting for the things that he's wanted to fight for this whole time, and we show that in how he's willing to help the Hell Brothers raise their hazard level. Now we see this as kind of a red flag since they're going through the same process that the Hokuto trio went through in episode 20, meaning the next time that they're defeated in battle, they disappear completely, meaning this is probably their last episode even if you didn't already know that was going to happen. Now for what it's worth, I have to give credit where credit is due. I did not expect Utsumi to actually turn on Evolt. We see that he reaches out to Gentoku telling him, look man, this is beyond what I thought was going to happen. He is going to take over the world. We need your help and we need it now. So it seems that Utsumi does have a conscience and he does have more of a brain than he's shown these last several episodes. Now, as far as Gentoku goes, we see a very interesting conversation between him and Katsuragi now that he's got his memory back but still has Sento's face, or Sato Taro's face. It's interesting how the camera work here is done in that we see that it's Sento's face, but they cut back between him and the actor playing Katsuragi to show, no, it's really him in there, and they're one and the same at this point. Now the episode goes on to show that a lot of the traits that we know about Sento carried over from Katsuragi, like the cow lick, like the way he dives into his work and doesn't really notice anything around him, but there's another trait that he seems to pick up getting his memories back, and that he doesn't have a lot of tact. He's willing to blatantly tell Misora, hey, I'm the one who experimented on you, and he tells Ryuga, what are you doing here? I was trying to kill you. Now, these are things that we're trying to see in contrast to Sento, and that Sento was a lot more caring, had a better bedside manner, if you will. But Katsuragi here, he's still very much about the science, very much about what it was that he was trying to do. And that carries over into the conversation when Gentoku, when he says that, I didn't sign up for this, I didn't want to make weapons of war, we're both to blame for this. Now for what it's worth, Gentoku pleads temporary insanity, citing the inciting incident with Pandora's box, changed his mind and made him very paranoid. But Katsuragi doesn't really care about that. He says, look, what's done is done, we did these things, we're responsible for this war. Now, to that end, Gentoku says that he's willing to fight to right the wrongs that he's created. Katsuragi, not so much. He does get that he's made a mess, but I don't see that same sense of duty that Sento has. More that he's trying to fix his own reputation, not everybody else. It's kind of a selfish way of looking at it. Now, once Gentoku fills everybody in on this offer that Utsumi's made to team up, we see that everybody's kind of dealing with the aftermath of all these things that just happened. We see that Misora and especially Ryuga are upset over the concept of Sento maybe not getting his memories back, and it looks like Ryuga is actually really taking this to heart, like, hey, I might be losing a friend permanently here, and that's growth for his character. He never would have showed that in the early episodes. Now, what's further interesting about this is actually Kazumi. When we see that he's made this offer, hey, look, we need to team up because now is the time to take down Evolt, he declines, saying, look, I've done all of these things up till now, how could I even forgive you, Gentoku, or at least work with you, maybe working towards forgiveness, but working with that country and those people, I can't. They're the ones who took my friends, I'm not going to take any part in that. And to a certain extent, you have to give it to the guy. You have to understand that up to this point, he's made a lot of conceits and he's actually made a lot of strides to grow as a person, but you can't expect him to be perfect. And at this point, working directly with the portion of the country that worked to kill your friends, yeah, that's a little rough. Now, I imagine with straits getting dire within the next couple of episodes, Kazumi will have to put that aside and work with the people from Sento, because if he doesn't, there's not going to be much of a country left to defend at all. But for right now, this is the stance he's taken, and we're going to have to deal with it. So now that the full day has passed, Evolt is now given the answer by Utsumi and Nanba as to what exactly they're going to do, and Nanba, in his own manner of red flagging, decides, you know what, I'm going to try and off you right now, which is a stupid decision given that Utsumi and Nanba have been front row to see just how powerful Evolt is. Now for the rest of the episode, we see that it's no holds barred on the side of Evol. Once he transforms, there's no prisoners taken. Literally, he's killing just about everybody who's in front of him. Now we're treated to a proper transformation sequence of him turning into Evol Black Hole, and it's interesting when you take into account just exactly what that means, that his motif is the black hole. If you understand from science that there's a gravitational pull around a black hole that you just can't escape, that's kind of the same way that the characters around Evol are being treated. There's no escaping him. Even if you think you've gotten ahead, much like Sento, much like Utsumi and Nanba, you can't escape him. And the same thing goes into the gravitational lens that you see reflected in his chest. That's the border that you can't get past if you look at it in terms of the science around black holes. Once you get to that point, there's this effect that just draws you in. That's the gravity of the black hole. And that's the thing, by this point, Nanba's gotten so close to the edge, the event horizon, if you will, of Evol, that there's no choice but for him to be sucked in. And we see here that he's going to go ahead and clean house now. He offs the Guardians that are on the field, and he decides to go ahead and off the Hell Brothers one by one. First Rai, in a very unceremonious way, and Fu kind of took the worst of it. Now admittedly, Fu did kind of redeem himself for a second as a character when he jumps in front of an attack that was meant for Ryuga, but the way he goes out, the effects on it just show how cruel and thoughtless that Evol is being in getting rid of these people that have no use for him anymore. Now much like Kazumi dealing with the Hokuto trio, Fu dies there in Ryuga's arms, and Ryuga's the one who has to deal with that. Now we haven't had anybody die in his arms since his girlfriend back at the beginning of the series, so you know this is kind of a sore spot for him to have somebody lost their life right in front of him. And then once that's all done, he decides to clean house with Nanba, toys with him for a second, and then offs him. Now granted, Nanba had it coming, but you almost want to feel sorry for the guy. I can't say I do though. And now that house has been cleaned, it's up to Utsumi to make his decision. Now it's interesting showing just exactly how he's going about this. He sees everything in his head, showing how much he must care for Nanba, and now he's just lost his life in front of him, but he makes the decision to go ahead and side with Evol. And having made that decision, he's given the new Evol driver and 2 full bottles, the Bat and Engine full bottle, and that allows him to transform into the new rider, Kamen Rider Mad Rogue. This will lead into next week's episode as we see more of Evol's reign of terror, but we might finally get the relief we need in genius form showing up for Build. So yeah, there's a lot of heavy stuff in this episode, a lot of deaths in this episode, which if you guys have seen any of the other videos I've done, I actually really appreciate. But it was interesting watching all of the different angles that were being used, the different motifs that were being used, as well as the use of the mirrors and the clocks in that last scene, seeing the writer's reflection, seeing how the clock was just slowing down the tick, tick, tick until the characters were gone. Very artistic stuff, but at the same time, I don't feel that any of it was cheap. I think it was warranted, and I do agree that this might have been the best episode so far. But those, of course, are my thoughts on the episode. I want to hear what you guys thought in the comments below, so let's go ahead and talk about this. First off, Kazumi. Do you agree with his decision to sit out this fight since he didn't want to work with Sento? Secondly, Nanba. Just how satisfying was it for you to watch him die? And thirdly, do you believe that Utsumi actually went mad at the end, or he's just faking it to bide his time to get back at Evol? You tell me in the comments below. And of course, during the week, you can always talk to me over on social media. On Twitter, I'm at JoshKnight1st. This has been episode 38 of Writer Rebuild for episode 38 of Kamen Rider Build, Mad World. I'm Josh Knight the First. I'll see you guys again next episode.